All right, today we have Nissan Navara D40 2008. It's got a problem EGR valve. Okay, trouble codes. P0403 EGR system. Usually it is a very common issue on Nissan Navara. Just change the valve, they'll take care of it. But if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about the system, wiring, how to diagnose and all that stuff, this could help when you're diagnosing in the future other type of vehicles as well, where most of them usually use the similar setup of EGR valve, where they also have a position sensor as well, not just the EGR control. A lot of the diesel uses that system. So now when Nissan gives you the EGR system, this trick not only works for Nissan, also it will work for a lot of other manufacturer as well. So basically, right here it says EGR system, but we don't know. Does it mean open circuit, closed circuit, performance? We don't know that at all, right? But use this trick. Usually just Google it. Okay, down here you see on the scan tool there's a search button. Just search it. It'll take you to the Google if you have a scan tool like this one, or something, high-end sort of scan tool. You'll take you to the Google page, and here you can see actual description of the fault code. Okay, so right here on this Google search, it says circuit malfunction, right? So let's scroll down. P030 exhaust gas circulation volume control valve circuit. So they're talking about the circuit issue, but the fault code here, P0403, means exhaust gas circulation volume control valve circuit. So it's a circuit fault. Okay, guys. Like I said, if you look on the description, if you go back, look on the description, it's just an EGR system. That doesn't make sense sometimes. It could be performance, it could be circuit fault. We don't know, open, close, right? So a lot of the other cars, when I'm diagnosing and when I see like a half, sort of not very full description on the fault code like this on the scan tool, you always do a Google search and you'll find actual description. Is it an open circuit? Is it a closed circuit? Or is it a performance issue? So that way you can sort of navigate your diagnosis procedure, all right? Now, there's not much really we can do here on the scan tool. Really, there's no bypass active test or anything. I had a look quickly. I can't see any bypass test. It does have a target EGR valve angle, but that doesn't do much for me. I had a quick look earlier. Anyway, I think it's when you start the car, you can kind of change the opening and closing of the valve, but maybe the car wasn't warm enough, but it wasn't really doing much for me. So I'm not gonna worry about that just yet, but it is a great test if you got a scan tool that is capable of doing active tests like that. On the live data, basically you got not much there either. I'll just quickly show you. I think it's got a position sensor data. That's about it. So let's just type in EGR, and there's nothing coming up. Exhaust. So I don't really see anything here. Let's just scroll down. Really, there's literally absolutely no data whatsoever on live data here for EGR. So I can't really do any testing, anything like that. Okay, so we may have to do this testing using our, meter, test light, scope, whatever's available for you. All right, so let's go back to my car here, what I'm working on. So EGR valve is kind of like around this area. That's your throttle body right there, right? Just behind there, you'll see the EGR valve right on that location there. So I'll just move that out of the way for now. Anyway, so other than engine light, just to let you know, this actually doesn't have any other any other issue. Okay, car drives fine, there's no hesitation, there's no lack of power, no complaint, no black smoke, none of that stuff from customer. So my assumption on this one is it is an intermittent issue that motor sometimes is not opening. So if we do our testing right now, we might not find anything, but I'll show you how to do all the testing and all that stuff in here. So next time when you have this issue, you can fully tackle this issue, whether it's a wiring issue, whether it's a motor issue. So let's get into that today. So that's my plug for the EGR. It's got 5 wires on them, okay? So I'll just unplug that quickly. Okay, so if you can see, there's a straight pin 5 wire, okay? Also, another reason I wanted to make this video is whenever you look up on this wiring diagram in Australia, they weren't giving me a proper wiring diagram for Nissan D40, which is, that's available in Australia. I don't know, maybe overseas they have a different wiring diagram, or maybe just a different Nissan Navara has different setup. Some of the wiring diagram they're showing me is completely doesn't make sense. It's not even like anything like this one. Another ones I saw was one with the square plug where you'll have 3 wires at the bottom and 2 wires at the top. Those Nissan Navara, those V6 Navaras diesel, they use those plugs on them, EGR valve, and some of the other Navaras use those square plug with the 5 pin, but the shape of the plug looks completely different. Those wiring diagrams I could find on the internet, and yeah, I couldn't find any of this wiring diagram on the internet with the 5 pin straight pin like this one, rectangular plug. So if you look at the back, you'll see 5 wires there. I don't know how good can you see that, but there's 5 wires there. Out of these 5 wires, we're gonna have 2 for EGR control, okay, and 3 is going to be my position sensor. So whenever EGR opens and closes, right, computer wants to know the position, how much it opened, how much is closed. So they also not only have a EGR control inside there, they're also going to have a position sensor, okay? I'm going to tell you what you're going to see from memory, okay? I don't know, I may be wrong, but from memory, the top 2 wires going to be your EGR control. I could be wrong though, we'll do some testing in a minute. And the bottom 3 is going to be your position sensor for the EGR, all right? So from memory, let's do some testing and I'll tell you what we're gonna see there, and then we go from there. So let's talk about the position sensor first. Like I said, the bottom 3 is our position sensor, and I'll tell you, without looking at the wiring diagram, and this is universally true on a position sensor, you're gonna have 5 volt, 5 volt earth, okay? 2 5s and 1 earth. Now, sometimes you may not have that second 5, okay? So I'm talking about 5 volt reference power supply, 5 volt bias voltage, or signal, you can call it, signal wire, and then the third one going to be your earth, okay? Now, let's do that testing right here, and then we can identify which is our, position sensor, which is our EGR, and this will work on any EGR valve you work on, okay? They all work the same, more or less. So as you can see, I'm just gonna quickly touch it without damaging the terminals. So battery positive, test light, obviously we're looking for earth. So when we saw earth, the test light is gonna light up. So we got earth in that second from the bottom, okay? Second from the bottom, we got earth, okay? So now the other 2 going to have 5 volt on them, 5 and 5. I'm looking for 5 volt here. Okay, start from the bottom again. So we got, you can see on the screen, 4 volts, a little bit more than 4 volts. I'm on a very large scale, I'm on a 20 volt scale, so roughly 4-5 volt here, right, on the bottom one, as you can see. Now the middle one we said is the earth, So let's go to the third one from the bottom, okay? And we also has a 5 volt, a little bit more than a 5, okay? So the last one and the third from the bottom. So like we said, it's 5, 5, and earth. Okay, we can put a meter here as well. Test just a multimeter, and you can do the same testing. You don't need a scope for this, just to identify wires. Just go on your voltage scale. I'll just leave that there, if you guys can see. Just go on a voltage scale. And currently, obviously, I'm on voltage range. So I'm gonna go and touch my bottom wire, 4.91 volt, right? And middle one is the earth. And let's go to the third one here, 5 volt. So just by looking at it, I already know which one is my reference voltage and which one is my bias voltage or signal voltage, okay? Look, this one's 5 volt. The bottom one is 4.9 volt. Okay, there's a reason why you're seeing that little bit of drop on the voltage. I'll have to explain to you if you already didn't know. So the 5 volt, that clean 5 volt there is my power supply, which is my reference voltage, okay? Now the bottom one with the 4.9 volt is my bias voltage. That's a signal wire. See, it's very easy once you understand all this stuff. It's very easy. A lot of the time you don't even need a wiring diagram. You can identify the wiring, what they're supposed to do, and what you need to see on them sensors, okay? So now we are confirmed that the bottom three is my position sensor. Now having that 5 volt, 5 volt, and earth, we already know the wiring to the plug from wherever it's supposed to come from, whether it's computer, whether it's ground, more than likely everything is coming from the computer, right? Without looking at the wiring diagram. All my wiring is good. My computer is sending out what it's supposed to send out, okay? Now, if I back probe my signal wire here, which I'm gonna do now, you can do this absolutely with the multimeter, no problem at all, okay? I'll just put that multimeter aside. I'm still on the battery negative with my scope, my channel A, blue channel, okay? What I'm gonna do is I'm going to, like I said, the bottom one, we said it's a signal voltage that had 4.9 volts on it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back probe that bottom wire. So I'm just back probing that bottom wire from behind because I want to connect this. I want to connect this sensor back, the plug back in the EGR valve, okay? So let me make a good connection. I'm not seeing on the screen. Let me go. Yeah, so I got good connection on the screen there. You can see 4.9 volt. We can measure that, but you can see it's definitely our signal wire, okay? So, all right, 4.9. So as soon as I plug this in, I got the key on. That's it. I haven't run the car. I've got the key on. As soon as I plug it in, see how it drops? Okay. Unplug it, comes back up, and plug it in, it drops. So it drops to, I think I don't have a good connection, but see how it dropped to, I don't know, 1 point something volts there, 1 point. I can measure that, but that's no big deal. So that way we already know that that is our signal, because whatever the position of the EGR in the EGR valve right now, that's what you're gonna see on that signal voltage, obviously, right? When you unplug it, it's an open circuit, you're gonna see 5, jumps up to 4, 5 volt there. As soon as you plug it in, that's gonna drop to whatever the position of the EGR valve. Now, the third one, we said the reference 5 volt will never drop, okay? So the third one, which is my white wire. So the purple is my signal, the black is my earth, and the white color or cream color, white color wire is my 5 volt reference, okay? So there you go, 5 volt on the screen. I'll plug it in, okay? That will never change. It will stay on no matter what, because that's a power source for the signal sensor to work, right? So that's how we check the position sensor, okay? All right, I'm just going to quickly describe to you. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because this is not a class for the position sensor, but I'll just quickly describe. So what we're going to have is we're going to have an ECU. This is your engine computer, right? Engine computer is going to have 3 wires coming out to the sensor, okay? So we're going to have 1, 2, and 3 wire. So this is your sensor, let's say, okay? So basically how it works is when the sensor, the position of the sensor, the resistor moves up and down because it's a variable resistor. Not variable resistor, sorry, the potentiometer. So the resistance varies here, okay? You know what I mean. So whatever moves that position of the resistor in there, that's going to change our signal voltage, okay? That's how it basically works. Like a fuel float in the tank, they work exactly same too. A fuel level sensor on some of the Mercedes newer car, they don't call it a float anymore. They call it position fuel level sensor. So they work exactly like this. So you know how the float goes up and down and it changes the resistance, if you ever seen the float in the tank, right? Exactly like that. That's how it works inside the sensor itself. But we only focus here today on 3 wires coming out. Every position sensor is going to have 3 wires most of the time, okay? So we say we're going to have an earth here. So this is our earth wire, and we verified that earth, right? One has 5 volt. We verified that as well. And the middle one is our signal, okay? And we say it's 5 volt. So it's not really going to be 5 volt. It's going to be 4.9 in our example we saw, right? But you can say, just to remember, 550. Sometimes you may not have that 5 volt bias, like I said, but sometimes. I've seen as early as 2014 Captiva on a manifold pressure sensor, they didn't have that 5 volt reference. So when you unplug it and you see, trying to see the voltages there, you're going to see earth, you're going to see 5 volt, but you're going to see nothing on the one of the wire, okay, on the signal wire. So now, if you plug it in, obviously the resistor in the sensor will change and that will drop that voltage. That's why we saw it went from 5 volts down to about 1.5. I didn't quite get the measurement, but the voltage dropped. 5 volts remains the same, earth remains the same, nothing changes, only the signal voltage changes whenever the position of the sensor changes, right? So now inside the computer, what you're going to have is you're going to have a 5 volt power supply, okay? 5 volt power supply, or you know, through a regulator or however they do it inside the computer, they will send constant 5 volt out. Now this is going to be a ground inside the computer, okay? So we saw that ground as well, we saw that 5 volt as well. On the signal wire, we saw 4.9 volt of bias voltage there. So what happens is it's going to go down, and you're going to have some kind of device that will check the voltage. So let's say in our example, it's a voltmeter, okay? So it's going this way and that way on the earth and on the signal. So this is going to read that voltage in the computer. Whatever the voltage changes are there, it's going to read that. Now, where does that 4.9 volt comes from? It comes from this 5 volt. There's going to have a resistor here. Very, very high resistor. Usually they don't really support current flow. Very, very weak. Okay, voltage is going to travel. So 5 volts going to travel down this way when the connector is unplugged. It can't go that way because the connector is unplugged. So it's going to travel this way through the resistor, down on these legs, okay, and down to the voltmeter and to the earth. So we're going to see 5 volt right here when you measure that, because that 5 volts going to come to this wire when there is no load. As soon as you put load, any resistor, any load on that circuit, that 5 volts going to disappear. That 5 volt does nothing for the resistor. 5 volt is there for computer to do the monitoring of the circuit, whether the wiring is good, the circuit in the sensor is good or not. That's why they put that 5-volt bias voltage there. Okay, and now on some cars that you don't see that 5 volts, you'll see nothing in there. What that means is they just don't have that resistor in there to join that 5-volt circuit to my signal circuit. Okay, that's why you don't see nothing, because this voltmeter also, the whatever it checks the voltage in the computer, doesn't support current flow as well as the resistor up here. You're still going to have a little bit of current flow, obviously. You know, that's why you're seeing a little bit of drop. Instead of having 5 volts showing up here, because you have the resistor here, it's going to drop that little bit of a voltage, tiny bit, right? That's why you see a little bit less voltage than the supply voltage, obviously. But they both kind of don't really support current flow that well, okay? Yes, so that's our position sensor. This will apply to any cars you work on. They all works pretty much the same. Position sensor, the bottom 3 wires we already identify as is position sensor. Now the top 2 wire is going to be my EGR control, okay? So usually, if I remember again, what you're gonna see when you turn the ignition on, I'll make sure the ignition is on. What you're gonna see here is you're gonna see earth on both the wire. So I'll try that. So you got earth on that top wire. If you're picking that test light up, and one from the bottom, second one, bottom underneath, also has earth there. So they're both gonna have earth. So how this work is like a power window. Okay, if you ever worked on a power window, usually they'll have 2 wires going into the motor. They're both gonna have most of the time earth on both wire at all time. Now, whenever you press the button up or down, depending on which wire you're going to send the power to, obviously that way the motor is going to turn one way or another way to wind the window up or down. Okay, so both wires are going to have earth all the time, and when you press the button on press the window switch up or down, it's going to send 12 volt on either of that earth wire. So the earth switches to power. So one earth is already existing there, and other one gonna have power. That way the motor will work. So what does the motor need to work? Power and earth. Doesn't matter what type of motor it is. Okay, fuel pump, window motor, blower motor, coolant, radiator fan. Doesn't matter what type of motor do you have. You need power and earth to work. That's it. So same thing on this one, on this EGR motor, right? EGR valve. It's a motor, electric motor. You got 2 wire on the top there, blue and a red one. We saw earth on all the time on ignition on, right? So now what's going to happen is those both wires going to go to the computer, and then the computer is going to send power one at a time. It can switch power on both the wire. Okay, that way they can spin the motor one way or another way. So the valve can be open or closed, okay, according to what computer wants to do, right? So that's how it's going to work. Just by checking 2 earth there, that sort of tells us that the wiring from here all the way to the computer is good. Now you could have a short in the wire somewhere, but that kind of shows you that we probably gonna have an EGR valve issue there. But let's take it further, one more step. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put 2 channel on this wire, the top 2 wire for the EGR motor, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The computer will control it duty cycle, okay? Not on and off all the time. It's gonna be duty cycle according to the demand, how much they wanna open and close. Okay, I'll just connect. So what I'm gonna do now, guys, I'm gonna start the car, and then we'll see what happens here. As you can see on the screen, we can see the control from the engine computer, right? I'm just gonna increase that time division, time base. Yes, you can see what I'm talking about. The duty cycle, this is the on. Computer does it on and off according to whatever demand, how much EGR they want to open, right? You can see both my channel on both wire, which we saw earth on both wire earlier. Now they're both getting power feed as well, okay? So we got 13-volt battery voltage coming there on my red channel. Also on my blue channel, we got battery voltage going from 0 to battery voltage, right? Or alternator voltage, in this case you want to call it. Now, sometimes the temperature has to be right for this signal to show up, right? Or if the temperature is not right, what you can do is you can turn the car key on and off. On the off position on Navara, I've seen the computer usually controls that EGR valve. So the key is on the on position at the moment. I'll turn it off quickly. You can see both my wire has some control going from 0 to 12 volt. Without looking into too much detail, obviously, right? I can see that there's nothing wrong with the wiring. Computer can control this. We do have a fault code for EGR system malfunction, circuit malfunction. I think the problem is going to be the EGR valve itself. If you change this EGR valve, that's going to take care of this problem. All right, you can see the blue channel is controlling. I'm just going to do a couple of times for you guys. Sometimes running the car might not do the trick, but in this case, the car is cold, but you can see both my channels, they are getting control, right? And when you turn it off, you can really see. There you go. You can see the pattern there. Computer is controlling it. Yep. Okay. Now, let me quickly see if I can do the same testing, just roughly, if you don't have a scope, with the test light or not at home. Okay, I've never tried this before. Let me just quickly see I can make this work. Okay, I'm going to start the car, back up again. I'm going to go to my battery negative, and I'm just going to quickly touch my scope leads here. And I don't know if you guys can see that test light is barely lighting up because it's a duty cycle, very, very little duty cycle, small percentage. That's why it's not lighting up as bright, but you can see my test light is really, really dull and flickering. Okay, let's go to the other one. I'm not really seeing anything on the bottom one, but on the scope screen too, I'm not seeing any activity. Just double check my connection here just in case. That should be pretty on there. Okay, I'm not seeing any activities on the scope. Not only that, I'm not seeing any light, my test lights blinking or lighting up, but the top one definitely has some light there. I hope you guys picked that up. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly reach out to the car and I'm going to turn the car off while you guys watching that test light. And you can see that light blinking and carrying on, going on and off. We know the computer is controlling that. Let's try the same thing on the bottom wire, which we didn't see anything earlier. I'm going to start the car. I'm still seeing nothing. I'm just going to turn the car off, my channel B. I'm not seeing anything still. All right, let me try again. I got a little bit of activity on the screen, but the test light is definitely not lighting up. I got a little bit on the screen now, a bit more activity. I'm not seeing anything still. Let me reach out and turn that car off quickly. Okay, turn the car off. There you go. We can see some activity, and on the scope as well, you can see the test light were blinking before. Okay, so definitely you can check that control with just the test light at home if you don't have a scope as well. Okay.